In the late autumn of 528 AD, in the valley outside Chai City, the terrain was filled with dense forests that obscured the sky, and the Sunday, soldiers caught bandits hiding among the dwellings, but many underestimated their strength. On the other side of the valley, troops clad in black armor appeared, numbering more than 7,000 with stern faces. At their command, the soldiers' spears and halberds turned, and their formation revealed deep discipline. The power of war did not rely solely on numbers, but on unity of will. Cohesive ranks were the true core of breaking the enemy. Looking back to 501 AD, when Emperor Xuanwu of Northern Wei, Yuan Ke, first took charge of the government, the dynasty, already lasting for 120 years, was at the height of its unprecedented prosperity. Emperor Xuanwu entrusted reforms to officials such as Cao Qi, hoping to solidify the empire's foundations. Yuan Ying and other famous ministers held sway, but hidden dangers remained. Yuan Ke aspired to achieve the grand unification of the north and south, yet the southern dynasties were already in decline, with political troubles and foreign threats. It seemed Northern Wei had the chance to dominate the realm. In the early years, Emperor Xuanwu's ambitions were high, and the armies of Northern Wei struck south against Liang across the Yangtze, pressing their forces with rapid campaigns. They captured cities swiftly, reaching deep into modern Sichuan. According to established systems, officials were appointed, yet the officials of Sichuan were soon replaced. Although the plains of Sichuan were strategic, they could not be fully secured. By this time, Northern Wei already controlled 2/3 of the realm, yet the seeds of decline had been sown. Tuobagi Emperor Taiwu, Tuoba Tao, Tuobagi, had earlier established the harsh law of forced death for the mother of the crown prince, ensuring that once a prince was born, his mother must die. At first, this restricted the power of the empress's clans, but over time, it created disasters, as mothers perished and left young heirs vulnerable. Even if concubines bore children by accident, they were forced into abortions. By the 25th year of Yuan Ke's reign, he still relied on such customs. Succession to the throne became perilous, weakening the dynasty. External threats also grew more serious. In 507 AD, Emperor Wu of Liang launched a campaign from Poyang to strike Northern Wei. The Wei army suffered defeats under Yuan Ying's command, leaving Northern Wei weakened. Yuan Ke, after repeated failures abroad, grew depressed, and his earlier vigor waned. During this period, a consort of the Hu clan was favored in the court. She only asked that the emperor promise to restrain his harsh policies. In 510 AD, Lady Hu gave birth to Prince Yuan Shu. Emperor Yuan Ke broke precedent by not executing the child's mother, thus violating the established rule. Instead, he allowed Lady Hu to live, though later he grew suspicious of her influence. In 515 AD, Emperor Yuan Ke died at the age of 30. The young Yuan Shu succeeded the throne, and Lady Hu became Empress Dowager, ruling in his stead. Though she had been underestimated as a woman, she quickly revealed political skill, managing affairs with decisiveness. She forced Yuan Cha, a powerful relative, to relinquish control of the government. Yuan Cha lacked true talent, and though at first he was trusted, his mismanagement soon caused regret. The Empress Dowager grew furious and stripped him of power. Yuan Cha's ambitions, however, grew even greater. By 520 AD, during the Zhongguang era, Empress Dowager Hu tightened her grip on power. Yuan Cha's faction turned the government into chaos, leading to oppression and hardship for the people. In 523 AD, peasants in the northern regions such as Woye, Bingzhou, and Shuafang rose in rebellion due to heavy burdens and poor treatment. This marked the beginning of the great uprisings at the end of Northern Wei. The flames of revolt spread like wildfire, quickly forming 3 major armies, cutting across the north. Among the rebel leaders, Erzhu Rong rose as the strongest. His clan of herdsmen, numbering more than 4,700 households, had long raised livestock in the northern steppes. Their initial rise was not accidental, for their ancestry could be traced back to Tuoba Shijian of Tuoba Gui Emperor Taiwu, Tuoba Tao's time. Because Tuoba granted them privileges, Their descendants held land and avoided taxes for a century. When one of their daughters entered the imperial harem, their family gained further protection. The Erzhu clan controlled land stretching 300 li around Shuozhou in Shanxi, governing them autonomously. Their herds filled the mountains, making them overlords of northern Shanxi. As the uprising spread, local officials surrendered or were defeated, leaving only the Erzhu clan's forces capable of suppressing disorder. They dispatched troops to quell rebels in the southern regions, confronting powerful bandit leaders such as Chu Mu. The Erzhu family thus became an indispensable force in the late Northern Wei turmoil. In the year 525, Empress Dowager Hu pulled the young Emperor Yuan Shu under her control. She grasped the great hammer of power, trying to manipulate court affairs, but her rule was filled with suspicion and cruelty. She relied heavily on punishment, creating fear and resentment. Yet, among the generals, Erzhu Rong possessed the ambition to support and restore order to the realm. Many times he submitted memorials to the court, and with 3,000 elite soldiers he marched toward Hebei to suppress disturbances. Because of Empress Dowager Hu's jealousy, he was recalled to the capital. The Empress Dowager was well aware that the disturbances arose from her own distrust, but she refused to let go of power. Erzhu Rong, when later stationed in Shanxi, was known for his fair and pragmatic use of men. He disregarded a person's origins, ignored old grudges, and even if a man had been criticized or tainted politically, as long as he had real talent, Erzhu Rong would promote him without hesitation. This policy attracted many able men to join him. At just 16 years old, Murong Xiaozong followed him, as did Hao Jing, Tuobalu, Tuoba, and their 3 brothers. Even Yuan Tai of the later Northern Zhou eventually came under his influence. But the one who truly changed the fate of the dynasty was Gao Huan. At first he was merely a servant among the so-called 6 town soldiers, but because of Jia Chong's suspicion, he left and later found himself under Erzhu Rong. Gao Huan, sharp and decisive, soon became close to him. He lived long in Shanxi, biding his time. Meanwhile, the ministers in Luoyang tried to control the emperor. Empress Dowager Hu became more arrogant and oppressive, worsening the crisis. At this moment, the Emperor Yuan Shu secretly sent a letter begging Erzhu Rong for help. In 528, in the 2nd lunar month, Erzhu Rong led 4,000 soldiers marching toward Luoyang. On the way, he received the shocking news that Empress Dowager Hu, realizing her plot was discovered, had killed the emperor and set up another ruler. She then ordered Erzhu Rong to retreat. Erzhu Rong laughed to the sky, declaring that heaven itself was aiding him. He immediately marched faster toward Luoyang. The Empress Dowager sent her retainers to resist, but they could not stop him. The people of Luoyang, long suffering under the Empress Dowager's tyranny, could no longer bear it. They welcomed Erzhu Rong's army. Dong Baojing, who commanded 4,000 troops, surrendered without a fight. Thus, Erzhu Rong seized the Northern Wei capital without bloodshed. Entering the city, he summoned the ministers and discussed enthroning a new emperor. Diviners suggested that Yuan Ziyu had the mandate. Although the officials hesitated, Erzhu Rong pressed forward. With only 4,000 men, he had taken the capital. Now that the Empress Dowager was gone, who among the ministers could match him? They all dared not oppose. Yuan Ziyu was brought in, and soon he was enthroned. The ministers could only comply. Erzhu Rong then left forces to guard Luoyang and returned to Shanxi with his troops. Yet Erzhu Rong had sown the seeds of disaster. He carried out a bloody purge of the aristocratic clans, shocking the realm. News of this massacre reached Hebei. Jia Chong was overjoyed, believing that popular resentment toward Erzhu Rong was now overwhelming. He gathered troops, claiming to act on behalf of heaven. He raised his banner and proclaimed justice, gathering followers. In September 528, he marched with 7,000 troops. Though heavily outnumbered, his men faced odds of 1 to 40. He advanced toward Luoyang. Yuan Ziyu, with the new troops, decided to resist, but many believed it was hopeless. Jia Chong declared arrogantly that his soldiers must capture Erzhu Rong alive, boasting that the people's hearts had turned against him. Yet Erzhu Rong's forces struck first. He ordered the Tuoba brothers to lead their units into the valleys and ambush the enemy. Jia Chong's army fell into the trap, his men slaughtered, and the rebellion collapsed. Erzhu Rong's power now towered over court and country, feared and resented alike. Hao Jing was ordered to lead 6 picked battalions and advanced first. His men rushed forward in half-formed ranks, clashing with Gao Huan's forces. He shouted loudly to his left flank, and with coordination, the formation succeeded in its first strike. At the lowest point of the valley, Erzhu Rong had gathered 4,000 Shanbei soldiers. Each man carried only a heavy wooden staff. The command was clear. They were to capture the enemy alive. No killing with blades was permitted. If the enemy resisted, they were to be subdued with the staff. Soldiers at first were doubtful, but obeyed and set aside their swords. Jia Chong advanced his troops into the valley, the sound of drums and shouts shaking the mountains. As expected, Erzhu Rong's main force was concealed there, with units deployed in ambush. At that moment, Nuo Gao, clad in armor, stepped out to command. He rallied his brothers and subordinates, but as soon as 7 leaders defected and betrayed them, the formation broke. Reconnaissance scouts were captured, and the main troops were drawn into the trap. Their defeat was swift. Already shaken, they collapsed further under this blow. Hao Jing seized the moment, leading his men to break the enemy's ranks and capture their commander alive. When news spread that the leader had been taken prisoner, many soldiers dropped their weapons and thousands surrendered. The rebel army fell into disarray. Erzhu Rong understood well that many of these rebels were criminals pressed into service. If he accepted them too quickly, they might desert or betray him, so he devised a clever plan. He first allowed them to march free for 100 li, then sent his own troops to pursue them, announcing that anyone who surrendered would be pardoned and accepted into the ranks, but those who resisted would be executed. Along the road, deserters fell by the hundreds. Yet those who submitted were rewarded, and many were even promoted beyond their station. This unusual generosity won their loyalty. Erzhu Rong thus gained the blessing of fortune. Jia Chong's forces, with tens of thousands, surrendered and were led back to Luoyang. Yuan Ziyu was overjoyed and promoted Erzhu Rong to Grand Chancellor, placing him in charge of Hebei. Soon after, he was granted the title of Grand Marshal, and the armies of Northern Wei were entrusted to him. By then, Erzhu Rong had become the true master of the dynasty. In April of 529 AD, the Northern Wei Emperor Yuan Shu sought aid from southern Liang, dispatching Chen Qingzi with 7,000 men dressed in white robes to launch a northern expedition. Their advance was swift, cutting through like bamboo, and within days they approached Luoyang. The white-clad army slaughtered cities along their path, instilling terror. Soldiers believed retreat meant certain death, so they fought with desperate ferocity. Their fame spread, and Northern Wei trembled. At this time, Erzhu Rong was in Yan province, near modern Beijing. Upon hearing the news, he dispatched generals Erzhu Tianguang with 10,000 men, Erzhu Zhao with 12,000 and others, sending them to form a trap. At first, they managed to repel the white-clad army's first assault, killing over 1,000. But the white-clad troops regrouped, encircling and overwhelming them, swallowing soldiers alive in the fray. Their ranks collapsed. The white-clad army pressed on, and in half a day broke through the defenses. Captured generals were executed, their hearts cut out, sacrificed to the banners of the Erzhu clan. Erzhu Rong realized that only he could reverse the crisis. He personally gathered surrendered troops and marched toward the Yellow River. Yuan Ziyu in Luoyang awaited anxiously as the white-clad army's 7,000 men approached with unstoppable momentum. Erzhu Rong, instead of waiting behind defenses, boldly crossed to meet them. Erzhu Tianguang and Erzhu Zhao secured the flanks, cutting off the enemy's retreat. The white-clad army fought for 10 days, but at last was encircled. 3,000 were captured and brought before Erzhu Rong. Their commander understood resistance was futile and chose submission. In the end, Erzhu Rong's forces, though equal in number, matched the 7,000 white-clad men and fought them to exhaustion. Victory came at great cost, but the rebellion was crushed. According to later scholars, in ancient warfare with cold weapons, if the casualty rate exceeded 5%, soldiers would often rout. In the battle at Shaiyuan, the white-clad army's desperate nature was revealed. They had begun as desperate criminals pressed into service, driven by hopeless courage. But facing Erzhu Rong's iron discipline, they finally broke, and their fleeting strength was extinguished. Appointed as an official of Northern Wei, Erzhu Rong held firm authority. Yet Yuan Shu was weak and incompetent. If one wished to take Luoyang directly, overthrow Yuan Shu, and remove the white-clad army at its root, it would have been possible. Erzhu Rong realized this and gathered the troops of Liu Banzhou, which led to disaster. He dispatched Zhao to strike with cavalry at Yuan Shu's main camp. As expected, they could not withstand the assault. Yuan Shu's son was captured, and he himself fled, only to be seized during his flight. The once proud white-clad army collapsed completely. The fall of the white-clad army shocked the realm. Erzhu Rong, because of his merit in capturing Luoyang, was granted the lofty title of Pillar of State, Zhu Guo. His prestige shook the empire. Yet, just like many ambitious warlords before him, his fate turned quickly. The very next year, he was assassinated, as if destiny itself were mocking the unstable situation of the dynasty. In the year 530, Emperor Yuan Ziyu, unwilling to remain under Erzhu Rong's control, took advantage of his absence from court. He plotted secretly and struck with a sudden move, killing Erzhu Rong at the age of 38. Thus ended the brilliant yet turbulent life of Erzhu Rong, leaving behind a heavy mark in history. His life was one of sharp contrasts, filled with both glory and blood. His true strength lay not in numbers, but in precision. With just 7,000 men, he defeated armies of hundreds of thousands, relying on strategy, timing, and his keen grasp of human nature. His victories were not reckless displays of brute force, but the result of carefully calculated moves and profound foresight. He could reorganize elite Hu cavalry, deploy forces with balance, and skillfully appoint men to positions. He recognized Gao Huan's military genius and valued Hao Jing's sharpness in command. Their future achievements only highlighted how shrewd Erzhu Rong's eye for talent had been. The white-clad army, numbering 7,000, faced 470,000 enemies. Under Erzhu Rong's leadership, they crushed them utterly, and Hebei fell before him with barely any resistance. His victories earned him a place among the greatest commanders of the Northern Dynasties. Yet his methods also revealed fatal flaws. He never established a stable dynasty, nor did he push forward technological or institutional reforms. His subordinates Gao Huan and Yuan Tai would inherit the mantle of power, each becoming towering figures in the Northern Dynasties. But Erzhu Rong's legacy was stained with blood. His ruthless massacres cost him the hearts of the people. He could not fulfill the role of a savior of the dynasty. Even so, his remarkable military talent made him a key figure in the final years of Northern Wei. With limited resources, he defied overwhelming odds, shaping the course of history in the age of cold steel. The pillar of state, Zhu Guo, has long since fallen, but the struggle he embodied left a deep imprint on the trajectory of the Northern and Southern dynasties. In some ways, it even laid groundwork for the unification to come under sway. Like echoes in the valleys of Wutu, the name of Erzhu Rong still carries the air of both brilliance and tragedy. He was a master of war, but also a warning written into the fate of empires.